The following story tells of the bravery of Corporal Erkki Ilmari Tuomela during the Continuation War in the winter of 1942. The account was published in the Finnish war magazine Kansa Taisteli in 1957. In the famous novel The Unknown Soldier, author Väinö Linna describes a moment when the character Rokka considers destroying an enemy strongpoint. He studies the terrain carefully and plans the route he could crawl through the snow. In the novel, Rokka never carries out the attack, but in real life, a similar strongpoint did exist. During the winter of 1941 to 1942, the 3rd Battalion of Infantry Regiment 29 held positions along the Svir River. In front of the Finnish trenches lay an open field. In the middle of that field stood a small, heavily fortified house used by Soviet soldiers as a forward strongpoint. From this building, enemy snipers and artillery observers constantly watched Finnish positions. Because the house stood on slightly higher ground, it allowed them to observe the battlefield during the day and direct fire with deadly accuracy. The closest Finnish position, known as Little Million, was about 300 meters away. Artillery and mortars had tried to destroy the strongpoint many times, but without success. In January, a replacement soldier arrived at the company, Corporal Erkki Ilmari Tuomela. He had just been released from a military hospital after suffering a severe facial wound. One of his eyes was permanently blind, and the other had not fully recovered. Despite this, Tuomela had repeatedly requested to return to the front as a volunteer. Soon after arriving, he began making quiet reconnaissance trips into the dark no-man's land between the lines. One night, after returning from such a patrol, Tuomela asked his officers a surprising question. Could he destroy the enemy strongpoint himself? At first, the idea sounded almost absurd. After all, the man suggesting it was half-blind. But Tuomela insisted that in the darkness he could see as well as anyone else. And his hearing, he said, was excellent. Eventually, the officers agreed to consider the plan. A special demolition charge was prepared by engineers. It weighed nearly 10 kilograms and contained both explosives and gasoline to ensure the building would burn. A long field telephone wire was tied around Tuomela's waist. This wire would allow the soldiers in the trench to track his progress and later trigger the charge. Armed with a pistol, 2 grenades, and the heavy demolition pack on his back, Tuomela crawled out of the trench into the freezing night. 2 soldiers accompanied him part of the way. One helped him through the barbed wire obstacle. The other secured his movement halfway across the field. After that, Tuomela continued alone. The crawl was slow and exhausting. In the trench, the soldiers watched the telephone wire slowly unspool from the reel, measuring his progress in the darkness. Minutes turned into an hour. Sometimes the wire moved slowly. Sometimes it stopped for long periods while Tuomela listened carefully or cleared snow from his path. The most dangerous part came near the enemy position. From earlier patrols, Tuomela knew that 2 guards usually stood about 30 meters in front of the house. He would have to crawl directly between them. At one point, he saw a brief flash of light. One of the guards had lit a cigarette. Using that tiny glow as a reference, Tuomela carefully slipped between the 2 sentries. Finally, he reached the wall of the building. He searched for a place to insert the charge and discovered a firing port in the wall. Carefully, he lifted the heavy pack and pushed it through the opening. Holding the straps, he lowered the charge inside the bunker. Then he began the long crawl back. Halfway across the field, Tuomela decided to tighten the wire slightly to remove the slack. Suddenly, the the night exploded with a blinding flash and a thunderous blast. The charge had detonated earlier than planned. Gunfire erupted immediately after the explosion. Tuomela flattened himself against the snow and slowly crawled the rest of the way back to the Finnish lines. He reached the trench unharmed. Finnish artillery quickly opened fire on the destroyed strongpoint. Machine guns joined in, sweeping the area. At first, it seemed the building might not catch fire. But slowly, flames began to appear through the darkness. By morning, the structure had burned almost completely. Only the reinforced frame around the firing port remained standing. Corporal Tuomela received his promised leave. And once again, the war had shown what a determined and fearless soldier could achieve.